So today we're going to be talking about installing this MaxxAir fan and our vent. Oh, okay. Oh, yes, bro. Look at someone's face. Someone was eating the wool.
Got red-handed.
Go on. Stay.
Can you see?
So here's another MaxxAir fan install video. Now I know there's a million of these videos out there and I can't promise you that this one's gonna be anything special. All I can say is it might be a bit more entertaining. And at the end, our final product's not gonna look like it's got a bunch of melted ice cream on it since we're not gonna be using lap sealant to seal it all up. So in my first van, I had two MaxxAir fans, one in the front near the kitchen area and then one back in my bedroom. But when I went to sell it, I actually removed the MaxxAir fan above my bed and replaced it with a roof AC unit. So I kept it because I knew I would be needing one for this van build. And I lucked out because we're only using one for this van since we again have an AC unit that's going over the bed. The one thing that we did get new or different for this van was a MaxxFan Dome vent for our bathroom. That means we had to put 3 holes on the roof of our van, but we're just gonna focus on the fan and the vent, not the AC unit, since that's gonna be a standalone video later on.
All right, so when you purchase your fan and a vent, it's gonna come with a few things. A mounting plate, a collar or trim ring, and mounting hardware.
Another little thing that comes along with the vent is a guard. So if you choose to mount it on the side of your van, it helps protect it from debris and runoff from the roof. But for us, we were mounting it on the ceiling, so we didn't use it.
And of course, there's installation instructions.
Now, in order to cut the required holes in your van, you're gonna need a drill with drill bits, a jigsaw with a metal cutting blade, and then some tape, a marker, a straight blade, some measuring tape, and some cardboard to create a template.
You can make your life a whole lot easier by mounting your fans directly in the center of your van and purchasing a 3D printed mounting bracket that conforms to the shape of the roof so that you don't have to do stuff to all the bumps and ridges. But since we weren't mounting ours directly in the center, we had to level things out a little bit with Butyl, which we'll get into in a little bit.
The reason we didn't end up mounting the vent or the fan in the middle of the van is because our bathroom is located up at the front here behind the driver's seat. Right here, toilet, shower, vent. And then in order to fit our solar panels and the cargo box and this really big fly rod vault, we needed to set the fan over, which is about the center of the sliding door. And it's in a location where we're not gonna have any cabinets out in the way. And it's also kind of like the central large opening near our kitchen, so we'll have a lot of ventilation while we're cooking. We even mocked up some 2x2 framing to make sure we'd be landing in a good spot with the ceiling's framing.
So once you have your locations picked, it's time to build a template. So we're using this bolt, which just happens to be 6 1/4, which is the diameter that we need for our vent fan that's going in our bathroom. But I'm tracing a template and I just moved it. Shit. I'm tracing a template so that after we drill our pilot hole from the interior of the van, we can go up on the roof and just line up our template with the pilot hole.
So 6 1/4, center should be 3 1/8.
So there's our center point. Perfect. Okay, so now we're tracing the interior of our MaxxAir flange to give ourselves a template for that one as well. And I already drew it, so I'm just pretending. So the length and width both need to be 14 exactly, and our interior measurement right now is 13 1/2. So all we're gonna do is add a 1/4 to each side.
It does help to have like a large T-square so you can get straight lines while you're making your template. Time to cut it out. Then you're gonna wanna mark your center points since that's how you're gonna be able to take your template and line it up to those marks you made on your van. Now it's time to start cutting some holes. Hole, hole. Now we're gonna go and pop our holes from the interior.
What are you not doing right now?
The first thing you're gonna do is send a pilot hole through the interior of your van to the exterior where you place those initial marks when you decided on where to place your fan or your vent. It's also not a bad idea to bag or tarp off the area where you're gonna be cutting. That way you can keep all those metal shards and cutoffs from falling into the interior of your van.
Then you can get up on top of the van and set your templates into place.
You can take a drill bit and place it right on top, and they have matching center points, and then it's just about getting it square.
The bathroom vent template was easy since we didn't need to make sure it was square because it's a circle. Ta-da! But the MaxxFan template took a little bit more work. We just used one of the ribs as a straight line or reference point to make sure that our template was square to the van.
Once your marks are made, you're good to go and place all of the pilot holes you need in order to get your jigsaw into the metal and start cutting. All right, I'm gonna go with this small bit, set a few holes. I'll probably go my corners, my centers, and then I'll come back with this larger bit that the jigsaw blade can actually fit through. I like to start with a smaller bit since it's easier to keep in a single location and get down quickly. It's like I'm making a clock.
How many hands are on a clock?
I don't know, like 5? And then once I have all my holes popped with the small bit, I come back with the larger one and widen them out. I'm flying like a madman. I will say at this point, you should be putting tape down all along the perimeter of your template mark because you don't want your jigsaw to scrape the metal of the van. But since we were in a rush, I completely forgot. I did luck out. My jigsaw is pretty new, and so the guide on it, the plastic guide, really didn't scrape or chip any of the paint, but I should have taped it off. And it's important you take your time. You know, you might snap a blade or two. I definitely did.
We broke our bit.
Yeah. Sometimes when you're going over those ribs, you might catch a little edge, it pops up and snaps, so it's not a bad idea to have multiple blades on you so you don't have to spend a bunch of time going back and forth to the hardware store.
It's out.
Oh.
And once all your cuts are made, it's time to clean up.
So now that we've cut it, we're gonna clean up our edges with a file, get any burrs and high spots off.
Then you'll want to go through with a vacuum and suck up any metal debris that got everywhere.
You really don't want that stuff sitting there. Even the smallest of metal shavings can create these little spots of rust. It doesn't take long. The next time it rains, you'll end up with rust on your roof.
Then you can clean all the surfaces of the van where you're going to be applying the mounting bracket. We like to use an all-natural, chemical-free cleaner like Mrs. Myers.
So we can drink it afterward.
Because Ben likes to taste everything.
Yes. Then you can go through and coat all of the bare metal edges with a primer. And we just used a white Rust-Oleum enamel since that's what we've been using for the rest of the van. Oh, I got it.
Don't make him mad.
2 holes. So many holes we've been cutting. Avoided a massive mess. Nice diaper. All right, so now onto the Butyl.
Butyl is a synthetic rubber adhesive used as a bonding agent to form a watertight seal.
We used a 3/4 inch butyl tape for our fan, which was given to us by some viewers of the channel, David and Christina, thank you. And we ended up layering it 4 times. Why?
Lucky for us, a portion of our bracket landed on a bumped up section of the roof, so we needed to make the surface level, flush. And so in order to make everything flush, we applied 1 layer of butyl to the bumped up part and 4 layers of butyl everywhere else.
So we added about 4 layers to everything. This is just a single layer. As you can see, it's pretty level now. Remember, when you're putting this in, keep these tabs on the side. Then for the vent, we used a 1/4 inch butyl since the lip of the vent was a lot smaller. And again, it landed directly on a rib on the roof. So we applied 1 solid layer, and then on the lower portions where it dipped below that bumped up rib spot, we applied 2 more. So there was a total of 3 layers on the sides and then 1 layer in the center.
Yeah, we look good now.
Okay.
We are actually getting contact now.
Good.
Beautiful.
Now that we have butyl on both, we are going to pop our holes for our screws with a drill and start sealing them down for the night. The vent has some pre-marked holes for your screws, but you need to drill through them. Just make sure the bit you grab is not bigger than the screws themselves. So all I did was drill through the plastic and straight into the van to make a pilot hole for the screws. Might not be a bad idea to pull this off while you're going. We did find that the screws that came with the vent were pretty short, and since ours sat on top of a rib and we put butyl underneath it, it was having a hard time reaching the metal. But after we placed a few in, making sure that they were opposite of each other so we had equal distribution of pressure, we were able to squeeze the butyl down enough to get a good bite on the metal and a solid attachment. All right, so now that we're on there, nice and tight, I'm gonna put this lid back on. Then it was onto the fan's bracket, and it was the same process. I popped the holes through using a drill bit, and then I came back with the screws and then put them in on opposing sides so that we had equal distribution of pressure. And again, don't go too crazy on this. You don't want to put so much force into them that you're squeezing all the butyl out and then cracking your bracket. You just want to make sure that you're squeezing down just enough to have an airtight seal. Okay, now I'm putting the fan in place for tonight because it's supposed to snow, but we've got all of our screws in place and they're evenly squishing that butyl. So we're gonna let it sit and then come back tomorrow and trim off the excess and then hopefully seal this all up with some of our Flex Seal. Eh?
It's blinding me. I'm not good at gaffing.
Okay, so it's the next day, or it's a few days later. And we're gonna come back through and trim off all of our excess butyl. We have some like spillage, oozage, some excess that we need to cut that after putting it down with the screws squished out. So we're gonna just use a blade, cut it off. That was a good one. And then we will come back through, do another wipe down because it's a few days later, and then we will apply our Flex Seal to like double seal everything down in our screws. Now the butyl should do a really good job at creating like a watertight seal, but there is a chance that you might have an air gap somewhere, and there's also the possibility of your screw holes leaking. So you need to come back through and apply a final layer to seal it all up.
Most people use a product called lap sealant. You just goose it all out over your screws and the sides of your frame, and it slowly levels out and conforms to the shape, creating a watertight seal. But it sort of looks like melted ice cream.
I prefer to use Flex Seal. That way I can tape off a nice border, paint it on, while creating a nice watertight seal and not having this ugly, lumpy finish. And I know it works because this is what I used on my previous van, and I lived in it for over 3 years in all sorts of weather conditions and storms, and I definitely clipped over tens of branches, and I never had any leaks. It held up. Anyway, it's easy to apply.
All you need to do is tape a border just like you would painting your house, and then brush it on.
Okay, so we've slightly rounded out our tape job on this one, and then we nubbed our corners in on this one.
It has a very thick consistency, but you can be pretty generous when applying it. Basically, you just want to make sure that when you're done, everything is coated white.
Do it.
Oh, new pants, new pants.
We are able to apply our Flex Seal to both the fan and the vent within 40 minutes, and then we immediately pulled our tape. Because when it dries, it forms a solid rubber sheet, and by that point, the tape would just be part of it, so when we pull it up, it would pull the whole layer off with it. Shut up,
Do you hear that squeaking?
baby.
Not baby.
Clean.
Beautiful.
Cleaner than the roof itself.
Whoa. Whoa.
Just this background.
You'd rather me not be excited?
Then we let it sit and dry for over 48 hours since it was cold outside and we really didn't want to fuss with it.
Guess what? It's still cold.
Yes, because we're converting a van in the middle of winter, and then we gave it our water test. Okay, so before we do our little water test, we've got to mount this thing down right now. It's still really loose, and so to get access to those screws, you can manually open your fan, depending on which fan you have. And I'm open now, so we'll go up to the top, pop them in. As you can see, it's snowing and it's a little dirtier up here now, but we have a watertight seal, but we're gonna do a test anyways. But before we do that, I'm going to attach this to this flange, and there's 4 mounting points. We just gotta make sure our fan is facing the right direction. The part that opens goes toward the back. Make sure your wire is accessible from the inside, because you're gonna have to hook it up. Okay, so 1, 2, and then there's 2 on the opposing side. So 4 screws. Don't go too crazy. Nice and tight, folks. So now what we're gonna do is test if it's watertight. So I'm gonna pour a bunch of water on this, plus we're gonna get 8 inches of snow, and we'll look on the inside and see if we got any leaks. Ooh, wow. Torrential downpour. Oh my God, what's happening? We're driving in a train. Okay, let's see if it leaks.
It's pretty dry.
I think we're all right, folks.
Now, another thing you're gonna wanna consider on the interior of your van is a frame.
Now, depending on where your fan is located, your ceiling and trim ring are gonna need something to attach to. Luckily for us, our fan landed directly in between the 2 points where we're gonna be adding some furring strips for our ceiling, so we really didn't need to add a bracket within the van. But with the vent, since it's smaller and it was really close to one side of where we're gonna have a furring strip, we needed to add a little furring strip on the opposing side.
So what we're gonna do is put up a little 2x2, which is actually a 1.5 by 1.5, because it's pretty level with these cross beams here. And so all we need to do is cut out this little strip of sound deadener so that we can then adhere this piece of wood to the ceiling.
What?
Probably some glue.
Yes. Okay, so we've hacked it, and look at that. It's a perfect fit. We'll be using a Loctite PL Marine adhesive. I'm being very generous, as you can see. If you ever like have any excess, just wipe it on your pants. I don't know if you could tell that if I've ever done that before. All right, get that nice and mushed and sandwich. Okay.
Is it good?
Yeah, so now we're gonna let that cure for a while because it is cold. So it's gonna sit, and hopefully when we come back, it'll be nice and solid.
Whoa,
Whoa.
got it.
Yeah, that's not going anywhere. Look at, I'm moving the roof, I'm moving the ceiling with it. That's a solid attachment point.
Good.
And with that, you have a fan and a vent installed in your van.
It's a pretty simple task, even if it feels intimidating to pop holes in your van.
After you do the first one, the next are not so bad, and then by the time you've done like over 5, it feels like nothing. We appreciate you watching, and if you're new to the channel, please subscribe, and if you've been here, you can like it or comment or do whatever you want to do, and you can stay tuned for when we start to cover more of the stuff we've been working on. You can see we've got some electrical running now, and then there's insulation. I don't know if you could see it, but there's some there, and there's some here, and there's some here. Bye. As you can tell, Rocky's a bit thicker than Relly here. And that's because he eats a lot.
Everything.
He's a good pre-rinser. It's one of his jobs. He likes to pre-rinse plates. You know, he was kind of my dishwasher for a while.
Now he demands everything.
Yes.
Whilst Relly is a little baby.
Uh-huh. He eats shoes.
And poop. What do your pets eat? Your earwax? Cat toys?
Cat turds.
Your socks and underwear? Snack.
Wool?
Give me this.
Let us know what your dogs eat.